there anyone else wishing to vote or to change their vote? If not, the ayes are 86, the nays are 1, and the nomination is confirmed. Under the previous order, the motions to reconsider are considered made and laid upon the table. The President will be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate will resume legislative session.
Mr. President.
Senator from Ohio.
Mr. President, I ask unanimously to speak as if in morning business for up to 10 minutes.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to discuss why the Export-Import Bank reauthorization is important to strengthening manufacturing and to creating jobs in places like my home state of Ohio. Ohio is the third leading manufacturing state in the country. Only Texas, twice our population, and California, 3 times our population, produce more goods than we do. EXIM, the Export-Import Bank's mission is simple. It facilitates exports. It contributes to job creation in the United States. It does this through loans and guarantees and insurance, filling in gaps in trade financing at no ultimate cost to taxpayers. Yet despite this record of success, exports and jobs are at stake because Congress cannot agree to EXIM reauthorization, in large part because there's a group of people in this body and across the and down the hall in the House of Representatives who simply think government, the federal government, should not have a role in much of anything. The bank's lending authority is set to expire May 31st, 17 days from now. We must act. The Export-Import Bank has been reauthorized by both chambers, by both parties, decade after decade. We know how important it is for job creation. But it's taken too long to get this reauthorization moving. While manufacturers wait, Congress has stalled. We cannot wait any longer. We know that Ohio workers can compete with anyone in the world when the playing field is level. When we stamp Made in Ohio label, it's a sign that an item was made with pride by some of the finest workers in the United States and some of the finest workers in our country. We know that U.S. manufacturing is getting stronger, due in no small part to increased exports with the help of the EXIM Bank. Ohio has had quicker increases in job growth than other states. We know that the manufacturing sector nationally has gained back some number of jobs that it lost. As an example, from 1965 to 1998 or 9, this country had roughly the same number of manufacturing jobs. A smaller percent of GDP, a smaller percent of the workforce, but a pretty constant number of jobs, similar number of jobs in 1999 as we did in 1965. But in the decade after 1999, we lost some 4 million, between 3 and 4 million manufacturing jobs in this country. But, Madam President, since 2010, almost every single month, we've seen manufacturing job increase in Ohio, in the presiding officer's home state of North Carolina, in state after state after state in this country. That's good, obviously, but too many people in my state are still out of work or are underemployed. What will happen to Ohio workers in our growing manufacturing sector if we fail to do what we should be doing here, if we fail to fund this critical resource? Ohio's manufacturers have been able to increase their exports with the assistance and the assurance that the EXIM Bank provides. In Fremont, Ohio, workers at Crown Battery, an employee-owned company, make renewable energy systems. With the help of the EXIM Bank's short-term multi-buyer insurance policy, $400,000 worth of Crown Battery storage battery equipment was exported to South Africa. Middletown Tube Works in Butler County in southwest Ohio exports tubular steel to Spain and Portugal with less risk because of the Export-Import Bank. And before that support, Nook Industries in Cuyahoga County required international customers to pay cash in advance of every order, which is an average of 4 to 6 weeks. Now, Nook Industry has major customers in places like China and South Korea and Israel, again, because of EXIM Bank support. Exporting is tough, especially for small businesses. Large businesses need this less than the small company that makes things, that manufactures things. Less than 1% of the nation's nearly 26 million small businesses export their products. Imagine if we can increase that only a little bit in percentage terms. One of the most important resources to help small and medium-sized businesses, especially those who make things, boost their exports is the EXIM Bank. That's why the Ohio Manufacturers Association strongly supports its reauthorization. As they said, the Ex-Im Bank is the only tool American manufacturers have to counter the huge sums of export financing, many hundreds of billions of dollars that other companies provide, other countries and other governments provide their exporters. Tom Buffenberger, president of the International Association of Machinists, told the Senate Banking Committee last month that American workers' families struggle in today's difficult economy, have little patience for beltway politics that continue to stall a proven instrument of export growth and job creation. I hear from small business owners, I hear from the head of the Manufacturers Association who want to expand and gain access to foreign markets but can't secure private financing due to the credit risks associated with some overseas investments. Export-supported jobs linked to the manufacturing sector already account for an estimated 7% of our total private sector employment. More than one-fourth of manufacturing jobs in Ohio depend on exports for their jobs. In 2011, the bank worked with nearly 100 Ohio businesses to support more than $400 million in export sales. Reviewing the bank's charter should be a cause to renew the bank's charter should be a cause that all senators support, just like the 25 times, Madam President, that the Senate unanimously reauthorized the agency since its establishment almost 80 years ago. It's a matter of American jobs and a matter of global competitiveness. But some people who seem to oppose everything that the federal government wants to do because of this philosophy that the federal government never does anything of use, forgetting Medicare, Social Security, safe drinking water, clean air laws, all that. Even though the Senate has reauthorized this program 25 times, they're standing in the way and blocking it. We face a trade deficit with China of almost $300 billion in 2011, meaning that we import almost about $800 million a day more than we export to China. We know that China's export, import, and development banks provide as much as $100 billion in export credits each year. That's more than 3 times as many new export credits as our U.S. Export-Import Bank. It's time we continue fighting for and investing in American manufacturing. It's so important that, like we do so well in Ohio, that we make things. It creates wealth, it creates a strong middle class, it creates opportunity for our young people. It's time to end the delay. It's time to reauthorize the Export-Import Bank. Madam President, I note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
From Ohio.
I might ask unanimous consent to dispense the quorum call.
Without objection.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to a period of morning business with senators permitted to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
Madam President, I understand that H.R. 5652 has been received from the House and is at the desk.
The clerk will report.
H.R. 5652, an act to provide for reconciliation pursuant to Section 201 of the concurrent resolution on the budget for fiscal year 2013.
I would ask, Madam President, I'd ask for its second reading and object to my own request.
Objection is heard.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business, the Senate adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, May 15th, that following the prayer and pledge, the Journal of Proceedings be approved, the morning hour be deemed expired, the time for the 2 leaders be equally divided, be reserved for their use later in the day, and the majority leader be recognized. Further, that the Senate recess from 12:30 until 2:15 to allow for the weekly caucus meetings.
Without objection.
It's the majority leader's intention, Madam President, to resume the motion to proceed to the Export-Import Bank reauthorization bill, legislation particularly important to my state. Tomorrow morning, equally divide the first hour with the majority controlling the first half and the Republicans controlling the second half. Today, we reached an agreement to complete action on the Export-Import Bank reauthorization. Senators should expect up to 6 votes as early as 2:15 tomorrow. If there's no further business come before the Senate, I ask that it adjourn under the previous order.
The Senate stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.